Welcome to Spooky News for October 25th, 2019. This will be our final Spooky News segment before Halloween, so the spookiness must be all ramped up by this point. Uh, Blink 182's Tom DeLonge has a group or a company that he formed to research UFOs. It's apparently a hobby of his. Well, it's become more than a hobby. In any event, they claim to have some material from extraterrestrial sources. Well, there's some credence being lent to that by the fact that they are now teaming up with the U.S. military. I mean, if these guys didn't have something of interest to the military certainly wouldn't be teaming up with them. So one really has to wonder what exactly it is they have. It's kind of a secretive shroud around it, but you expect that with military secrets. But I don't know. It's kind of piqued my interest. There was a creepy photo taken in Baltimore recently that purports to show a ghost girl coming out of a window. Um, they were on a ghost tour when they did it, and the picture is on the Baltimore local CBS affiliate's website, so I'll share the link. You can have a look at that. The Mirror has a rather unsettling little video. You can look at it, see if you think it's legitimate or not. But a gentleman named Michael Diamond in Liverpool apparently got a ventriloquist dummy's head from a Holocaust survivor. So it dates back all the way to World War II. And he has it in a glass cabinet. Well, he noticed that the cabinet door kept opening at night. So he put up a security camera to monitor it. And what he caught was the door to the cabinet opening by itself, and the mouth of the dummy moving, and the eyes of the dummy moving. Now, have a look at it yourself, see what you think. It's a pretty cool looking video, though. I've mentioned before about Lee Steer. He actually let me use a photo in a previous episode of Spooky News. Well, he's making news again with his paranormal investigation group inside a place called in Hull called 39 DeGray Street. That's in the UK. They apparently captured what they say is a demonic figure in their video coverage, and it was live streamed. So it's making a lot of news everywhere, so I really need to report it too, and I'll include a link. You can have a look at that, see what you think of it. Pretty interesting stuff, though. Lee Steer seems to be getting some cool stuff from just about on a regular basis now. There's a photographer in Arkansas named Benjamin Martin who has a thing for horror movies. Well, don't we all, really? I mean, all the cool people do, right? Well, in any event, since he's a professional photographer, although he focuses on wedding photography, he decided it would be really cool to capture photographs of recreating some classic images from horror films. And he's reproducing them and getting some pretty amazing results. So that's something well worth checking out. He's got some cool stuff. And he's working some real magic on these. You can tell it's a passion of his because he does such a great job on it. Haunted houses may be a lot of people's, you know, entertainment of choice this season. But in Brunswick, Ohio, a car wash called the Rainforest Car Wash is doing a haunted car wash. You can get your car snuck up on by creepy clowns who wash it for you, and while you're waiting in line, you get creeped up by other spooky characters, and it sounds like a nice, fun little twist on the whole haunted house entertainment. There's an Academy Museum of Motion Pictures being constructed in LA. It's supposed to be open early next year. I think a list of items that are going to be on display there, or at least a partial list, was made available recently. And particularly of interest to horror fans is the original cape worn by Bela Lugosi in the original 1931 film Dracula. So, be sure to check out the article about that, and if you're going to be in the LA area next year, be sure to check out the museum. That's certainly a piece of cinematic history from the spooky variety. This is the final week we'll be doing the little different method for the ghost walks and ghost tours. You know, with the spooky season, there are just so many of them that we can't really talk about them all individually. I play favorites, I admit it. If it's somebody I know or something in the general vicinity around here, I will occasionally talk about them separately. But for the most part, you've got to look in the details description section where the video is posted on the YouTube channel and also on the Facebook page, and you'll see all the ghost walks and ghost tours listed under the various cities, so you look for the city. Now, I had to pull some last week because the description was too long. I don't know if I'll have to do that again this week, but I pulled some of them that have been up the longest. And I know this week a few of them actually happened last weekend, so those are going to be pulled out, so maybe it'll make enough room for the rest. So keep that in mind, and enjoy your ghost walks and ghost tours. Just a reminder, this YouTube channel is supposed to be kind of interactive, so please share the videos, like them, leave some comments, subscribe to the channel by all means. And if you have any ideas for videos you'd like to do, or things you think we should cover, just please send us a message about it. We're always glad to hear from you, and we're always looking for new things to cover, so keep that in mind. I mentioned that sometimes I play favorites on these ghost walks, ghost tours. Well, this is one example. Author Adam Selzer is going to be doing a special Halloween edition in Graceland Cemetery in Chicago on Saturday at 11 a.m. So it's going to be particularly spooky. I mean, he does all kinds of tours. He's got a whole bunch scheduled this weekend, including an H.H. Holmes bus tour and, lots of spooky stuff. But this one in particular is geared toward Halloween and spooky. So be sure to check the link that I'll provide here, and you can see about getting some tickets. Hopefully there's still some tickets available for this particular event. But if not, you'll note that all the other ones for the weekend are included, and I'm guessing all of them will be pretty cool for your spooky adventures. Tomorrow, if you're going to be in the area of Volo, Illinois, the horror host Sven Gulli is going to be at the Volo Museum doing a meet and greet. And hey, if you keep your eyes open, you just might see me there. I'm planning to go and present him with a copy of Spooky Berwin and get an autograph and that kind of thing. So keep an eye open for me and go see Sven Gulli. Since you obviously enjoy spooky news, it's a safe bet you like spooky stuff. If you also like art and are going to be in the Athens, Georgia area between now and November 15th, make your way to a gallery called Bouvez or Bouvet, Buvez. There's an exhibit by a gentleman named Will Eskridge, and it's called Teen Scream, and it's art all focused on different horror movie icons from Freddy Krueger to Michael Myers and a lot more. So, if you enjoy cool artwork and particularly that with a spooky edge and are going to be in the area, you really should check that out. Burger King has a history of doing special items for Halloween, and this year they've got a Ghost Whopper, which is basically a Whopper except it has a bun that is a white cheddar cheese infused bun, so it looks white in color. They just debuted it yesterday, and it's available for a limited time. So if you want to try the Ghost Whopper, you need to get in there and try that. If you've followed me in these spooky news videos enough, you'll know that I like lists of things. And Colorado Public Radio has a list of 10 best horror music videos of 2019. You got everything from Foal's song called Exits, Better Oblivion Community Center doing Dylan Thomas, Warbly Jet's Cool Kill Machine, Orville Peck's Dead of Night, Death Valley Girls Dream Cleaver, Billie Eilish, All the Good Girls Go to Hell. So there's a cool list there for you to check out. I'm going to be adding some of these to the spooky news or spooky music video playlist on our YouTube channel, and probably put one up when this video goes live. So have a look for some spooky music videos. Last week I mentioned that there's so much music centered around the winter holidays, Christmas and all, but you don't hear a lot of music that's really focused on Halloween, and a lot of it's kind of silly novelty stuff when you do. Well, I was saying that there seems to be more of it coming out lately. Apparently, a writer for GQ magazine named Max Cia, or Say, CEA, agrees with me. He says that he thinks that there's a Halloween music renaissance upon us as pop music tends to get darker and into more spooky territory. And he kind of talks about some of the artists I've covered and a lot more stuff. Kim Petras is one of them. And it's well worth the read. And, I hope he's right, because I really enjoy spooky stuff. You would have never thought that, right? Doing spooky news and spooky ventures. So to me, to have some music that's spooky and still manages to be really cool and not so novelty cheesy is a really cool thing. Give a look at the article. I'll share the link for it, and comment and let me know what you think. Do you agree with him? Are we heading into a sort of a renaissance for Halloween-styled music, or is this just a fluke, or what's going on? Have you ever wanted to visit Stephen King's home in Bangor, Maine? Uh, have you ever wanted to write in that home? Well, you might have the chance. They've opened up the house because they're traveling a lot and pretty much never there. The Kings have opened up their home to some by appointment tours, and also 5 writers at a time can stay there and write there. Of course, you have to get approved, so I'm sure the waiting list is going to be crazy, and you're going to have to prove some talent probably for that last part. I'm not sure what the waiting list looks like for the tours, but it's turned into sort of a museum of King's work and a writer's retreat. So that sounds like a pretty great opportunity for writers who are big into Stephen King. You might think that horror comics would be coming out just in October for Halloween. Well, DC's spin off Hill House has a new series ready to launch for November called Dollhouse Family. And it's creepy stuff. I mean, to expect Halloween or spooky comic books to just be settled in for spooky season isn't really taking into account the whole history of comics. There's a rich history of horror comics going all the way back to the early days of comics, and it was a big part of the whole controversy about comic books being evil and doing bad things for kids. So this is kind of in that great tradition of horror comics, and should be a cool thing. stories of haunted lighthouses are really common legends. In fact, that new movie, The Lighthouse, opened last weekend, and I'm not sure if it's actually about a haunting or not, but spooky things and lighthouses just seem to go together. The state of Michigan has more lighthouses than any other state in the country, and an author named Diana Higgs Stampfler has just come out with a book called Michigan's Haunted Lighthouses that tells the story of some of them, and that sounds like a pretty interesting read, if you ask me. Speaking of the resurgence of comic books, horror comic books, that is, and how I've been mentioning for at least a couple weeks that you ought to look into the history of them if you haven't. There's a new article from a website called monstersfightingrobots.co that actually looks at the history of horror comic books, exactly what I'm talking about. So if you don't have a lot of knowledge of that, it would be a good way to get caught up a bit. Like I said, it's something well worth checking into. It's a pretty interesting history. Last week I talked about an article that lists some German ghost stories that influenced the book Frankenstein. Well, that article came out last week and was a part one. Well, part two has now debuted. So I'll share the link for that. If you checked out the first one, you really need to check out the second one. And if you haven't checked out either of them, what are you waiting for? People who brought you Riverdale are going to be bringing some Dracula and Frankenstein connected material around. We've got a couple new series coming out. One is called The Shelley Society, and it's being billed as a Victorian X-Files. And the other is called Brides, which is going to be based around the Brides of Dracula. So those are some cool TV coming out. Ought to be pretty creepy and spooky and just right up anyone who's into spooky stuff's alley. Rolling Stone magazine just released a cool list of the 30 best horror TV shows of all time. Everything from The Outer Limits to the recent Haunting of Hill House to a personal favorite, Kolchak the Night Stalker. So have a look at that list, and some of this stuff's probably available for streaming, so you can get some good ideas of things to watch. The Chicago Reader just published a cool interview with Sven Gulli, aka Rich Koz or Kaz, and he's talks about how he got started and some famous celebrities who are fans, and all kinds of things. Some other projects he's done outside of Svengoolie, so um, you should have a look at that article. It's really great stuff. I've talked about my fascination with lists. Well, there's another movie list that just came out that's pretty cool. The 25 Scariest Horror Movies to Get Spooked During Halloween. It's from the Daily Hawker. And it includes films from The Exorcist, Reanimator, one of my all-time favorites. I love that movie. Evil Dead, the original one, The Omen, Carrie. I mean, there's some really good movies on there. Exorcism of Emily Rose. You got The Thing, of course. More John. I love John Carpenter, so you got Psycho, The Shining. Well, I'll include the link so you can check out the list. Lots of cool stuff for building up your playlist for movies. I don't know about you guys, but I'm a huge fan of The Craft. That's the movie from the 90s. I think that's a really, really great movie. Perhaps not so much a horror movie, but it is definitely spooky. And it's a lot of fun, and God, the soundtrack's amazing. But they're doing a remake of it, and David Duchovny's just been added to the cast, so that should be pretty cool. Um, a lot of times I'm skeptical on remakes, but sometimes they're very good, sometimes not so much. We'll see. I've mentioned before that I like lists. Well, IndieWire.com has a new list of 10 best movies that feature ghosts, and it ranges from everything from Ghostbusters to The Devil's Backbone, Phantom Carriage. Lots of cool movies, and like I say, I like lists. They're always a good starting point. So, and you might find some things on there you don't know about, and know where to look for some cool ghost stories. There are two horror movies opening this weekend, both opening today. Countdown and Girl on the Third Floor. I've heard about Countdown. I haven't really heard much about Girl on the Third Floor. But get out to the theaters and enjoy yourselves. And that's a wrap for this week's edition of Spooky News. Tomorrow we'll, no, not tomorrow, sorry, Sunday we'll have a new Spooky Places segment on cemetery with a little bit of weirdness in it. And keep it posted or keep it your eyes tuned to our YouTube channel, and we'll have more stuff for you all the time. Spooky Ventures is the home for spooky content and spooky merchandise on the web. Check it out today at spookyventures.com. And remember, always keep it spooky.